In a small town surrounded by pine forests and abandoned factory buildings, life followed its familiar rhythm. People worked by day, gathered at the bar by night, and listened to the wind moaning under the rooftops. The 2000s brought dial-up internet, cheap cell phones, and flickering streetlights on old-timers. Ordinary life, but in its shadows, something dark had begun to stir. The first disappearance happened in late autumn. A 22-year-old waitress named Irina never came home after her evening shift. The cafe's security camera captured her walking out the door, and then she vanished. The next morning, her phone was dead, and on her doorstep lay only a damp scarf and a small note that said, "Thank you for your trust." At first, people thought she'd run away. Then came more disappearances, and the town's illusion of safety began to crack. The killer was precise, cold as clockwork. He didn't strike in crowded streets or leave traces for newspapers to sensationalize. His victims varied in age and background: a student, a market vendor, a call center clerk. What united them was trust. Each had spoken to someone who seemed familiar and followed that person into the dark. Each missing woman left behind a signature clue, a thread of red fabric, or a square-shaped symbol left near her home or belongings. No one knew if it was mockery or ritual, but it became his mark, a message that said, "I was here." In small-town life, secrets have short legs. Everyone thought they knew everyone else, but the killer moved between them unseen. He was spotted sometimes at bus stops, reading a newspaper, near the funeral home, or standing quietly in a group of factory workers, never speaking. He was invisible precisely because he looked so ordinary. Neighbors later said he was the quiet man next door, never smiled, never joined parties. Children avoided him instinctively. Yet nobody imagined that a nightmare lived right behind their fence. Every predator makes a mistake eventually. He made two. The first, a plastic bag left under an old bridge. Inside were a woman's scarf, her wallet, and a shoe repair brochure from a shop across town. Police found industrial grease stains and a rare fiber type, small but enough to raise questions. The second, technology. One victim, Olga, had kept digital notes on her computer, fragments of conversations and phone numbers. One entry mentioned a man she'd agreed to meet. The number was still active. Investigators traced the cell tower logs from that night and found a location near the outskirts of town. Two threads now pointed to one place. The evidence led to Victor Semyonovich, a 43-year-old factory worker who lived alone in a decaying house by the forest. When police searched his home, they found objects that weren't his: women's jewelry, watches, personal letters, and in a small workshop behind a false wall, a collection of notebooks filled with strange symbols and dates. On the shelves were tools, pliers, sewing needles, red threads. Then came the photos. Dozens of them. Each showed a woman captured in everyday life, unaware of being watched. In every photo, somewhere in the corner, a small red square appeared, his mark. And in the attic, they found an old camcorder. The recordings, according to police reports, were unfit for public release. When Victor was brought in, he looked calm, almost relieved. During questioning, he said little. "I didn't kill anyone. I only took what was mine. I cared for them." His words chilled the room. As investigators pieced things together, they realized the disappearances were part of a ritual. He had documented everything: dates, patterns, the feeling of control. It wasn't about killing. It was about possession. Some locals later confessed that they had seen women entering his house. They assumed he had girlfriends. No one asked questions. No one wanted to believe. The trial lasted for months. Families testified. Detectives described the evidence. Some of the recovered footage was shown privately to the court, grim proof of what had been done. Victor listened without emotion. When given the chance to speak, he said, "You call it murder. I call it keeping memories alive." He was sentenced to life in prison. The town exhaled, but the relief was thin, fragile. In the following weeks, people tied red ribbons around the streetlights where the women had last been seen. For them, it was a way to reclaim the symbol he had stolen. Years passed. The old house was abandoned, then demolished. But memories stayed. In whispers, in the way women still avoided walking home alone after dark. Some said they could still see a lone figure under the last working street lamp near the forest road, the same spot where Victor used to stand with his newspaper. No one knows if it's true. But even now, when someone finds a scrap of red thread on the ground, they look twice, just to be sure it's only fabric, not a message. Evil rarely looks monstrous. Sometimes it looks like your neighbor, standing quietly in line at the grocery store. That's the true horror of what happened in the 2000s. Not that a monster lived among them, but that no one noticed until it was far too late.